Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, Pro Physique Athlete. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to regain muscle after a layoff. This is a really common scenario and I often get asked about it. This was particularly a big issue coming out of the pandemic, but it's something that people encounter all the time. You fall off track for whatever reason it is in your life and you want to get back the gains you had before. The good news is that it's easier than you think. For a lot of people, they feel like they've lost their gains permanently, and this ends up discouraging them from actually going back because they see that recapturing their gains is like this insurmountable obstacle that would take a long time to get over. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step guide to get your gains back in the quickest way possible. The first concept we need to introduce when talking about getting our gains back after a break is resensitization, and this is the renewed novelty of a stimulus with time away from it. This means that when you take a break from a certain way of training, you become resensitized to that style of training. This could apply to different exercises, training with heavy weights, higher reps, or other techniques like metabolite training. The good thing is when you take a layoff from training, you become resensitized to everything. What this means is that when you bring back the training stimulus, you're going to behave like you were a beginner again for a little while. This has pros and cons. On the pro side, this means you're going to make fast progress, and it means that you'll get renewed growth even from techniques that you were using for a long time. On the con side of it, you will be naive to training and you will get really sore and you won't be able to handle as much. When returning from a layoff from training, we also need to consider the muscle memory effect, and this is where strength and size are regained more quickly than it took to initially get them. This means that you will progress faster in both strength and size gains in those first few months coming back, and it's basically like being a beginner again. Now, when you're coming back from a training layoff, you want to treat yourself like a beginner. So this entails starting with a more beginner style training program. You can always just start with one of my beginner program templates, but in general, you want to be thinking about starting with lower volumes. Since you're so resensitized to the training stimulus, you're going to grow really well even from low volumes to start. Next, start with fewer days in the gym. So you'll probably only need 3 or 4 days starting out. You can always add in more as necessary. You'll also want to think about staying a bit farther away from failure. So I typically recommend training to about 1 to 2 reps in reserve, but when you're just starting out, you might want to think more about like 3 or 4 reps from failure. This will make sure that you're not getting too sore and overdoing it. A lot of people get discouraged when they get back into the gym for that first week. They push really hard and then they're so trashed that they're not able to get good workouts the next few weeks. You really want to be thinking about titrating the stimulus so you're just getting that little bit of soreness, but in a manageable way so you're able to get continually productive workouts from week to week. How much weight do you start lifting when you're returning from a layoff from training? My recommendation is that you start light and you progress more quickly to start. Often people overdo it with the weight they start out with and they end up hitting a plateau quickly or even injuring themselves. Don't think that you're going to just resume at the weights you left off with before. Depending on the exercise and how long you've taken off, you might start with even half or 2/3 of the weight that you were lifting before. Then what I recommend is you progress more quickly to take advantage of that newbie effect. As we said before, you have this muscle memory effect which will allow you to progress like a beginner again. The easiest way to do this is to just start off with linear progression or a more rapid progression style. For example, about 4 months ago, I brought back Romanian deadlifts after taking over a year off of them. And I basically followed this kind of strategy. Before, my best set was a set of 5 at 345, so I started off way lower at 275, but I progressed linearly, adding 5 pounds every workout. This allowed me to quickly get back my gains without pushing things too hard. And just last week, I was able to set a new rep PR. Now, the goal here is to progress as quickly as possible in a sustainable fashion. That is, you want to choose the progression style that will allow you to add weight as quickly as possible without stalling out really quickly. That is, you want to choose a progression style that will allow you to progress as quickly as possible without stalling out right away. So you might start off with linear progression, but this may slow down after a while, and you might switch to a slower form of progression like double progression or whatever you were using before. If you were going back to squats and you started off with like half the weight you were at before, you might add something like even 10 pounds per workout, and then as progress gets harder, you might slow that down to 5 pounds per workout, and then maybe wave loading progression or whatever you were using. Another thing I like to do is start with lighter weights but higher reps. This can actually give you a bit more of that periodization effect where you start off with using more of that metabolic stress pathway for hypertrophy and then bring down the reps as you get stronger. This also has the effect of being safer. Since you're using lighter weights, you're less likely to get injured trying to jump under a heavy bar again. How do you know how quickly to progress when you're coming back from a layoff? The answer is that you auto-regulate by using soreness as a guide. Auto-regulation is the process of modifying your workouts on the fly to suit how you're feeling that day. What you don't want to do is jump back into your usual program and then hit a heavy workout and be sore for a week. This is a problem because it will impact your other workouts in that week and you won't get as productive stimulus overall. What I recommend is that you modify your training volume and training intensity in a way where you get some soreness, but only enough so that the soreness goes away before you train the same muscle again. So for example, if I'm training my chest twice per week, my next chest workout is 3 days away, I will aim to have 1 to 2 days worth of soreness. This kind of auto-regulation will take some experience to learn, but as long as you start low, you shouldn't have too many problems. I actually think there's a really useful indicator to titrate your programming year round. Even if you're not necessarily coming back from a layoff, this strategy works really well and it's something that I personally use. So what do you do if you find you have overlapping soreness? If my chest was still sore going to that chest workout 3 days later, I might consider backing off on my chest programming a little bit, perhaps by dropping a set or two or staying 1 or 2 reps farther away from failure. You really want to start working on the skill of auto-regulation because it will serve you well throughout your training career. When you're coming back from a training break, you can expect quicker strength gains from neural adaptations. This is basically that muscle memory effect we were talking about earlier, but you can think about this a little bit like the skill of strength, which will come back a lot more quickly than it took to initially get it. So you can expect to progress a lot faster than you initially did when you were getting those gains. Now, don't be necessarily fooled into thinking that those strength gains translate into muscle growth, because some of these will be from neural adaptations. Obviously, you will be regaining that muscle quicker, but keep in mind that some of those numbers going up will be a bit inflated. How should you run your diet when you're coming back from a training layoff? This is a mistake I see a lot of people make where they come back and they end up dirty bulking, thinking that they're going to double the gains they had before in a short amount of time. This is a mistake because there still is a limit to how quickly you're able to regain that muscle, and extra weight you're going to put on is just going to be fat. So I would recommend just going into a conservative lean bulk. My typical rates of gain will apply. So for beginners, that's 1 to 1.5% of your body weight gained per month. And for intermediate to advanced athletes, more like 0.5 to 1% of your body weight gained per month. Note that when you are coming back from a layoff, a larger proportion of that will be muscle, but gaining weight at those kinds of rates will make sure that you're not putting on too much extra fat. How long it takes to regain the muscle you've lost after taking a break does depend on how efficiently you train and how long you took off, but some people will say that it takes about half the time you took off to get back your gains. If you do everything right, like we talked about in this video, it might take you even less time. So if you are looking for a workout program to get you back on track, you can find my playlist on YouTube. I have a list of beginner and low volume programs at this point, and you can just start with one of those. Now the other option is you can take one of my more higher volume programs and just start with fewer sets. You can always take an existing program and just back off the volume to beginner levels. Someone starting out somewhere between 6 to 10 sets per muscle group is going to be enough to get you gains. Now remember that muscle growth is a slow process even when you are coming back from a layoff. So I want you to think of just putting everything into place from a training and nutrition standpoint and just running that patiently for a few months. If you're trying to decide on how to choose a workout program, check out this video where I walk you through step by step the features you want to look for in a good training program. Starting out with the right training plan is really important because it sets you up for success in the direction you're going to take for gains. My channel is all about getting you to your dream physique as efficiently as possible. So watch that video and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you maximize your progress. We'll see you next time.